Epifanes Clear Varnish is perhaps one of the most used traditional varnishes worldwide. It's renowned for its levels of gloss and retention, as well as high levels of UV protection. In this video, we're going to take a look through the basics that you will need to know in order to apply it. So this is a traditional, flexible, oil-based, high-gloss marine varnish. Its retained flexibility means that it can be used over most types of wood without the risk of cracking. It has great flow-out properties which make getting a great finish straightforward, even if varnishing is a completely new process to you. The way I always describe it is it's a user-friendly varnish. So let's take a look at how to apply it. Begin by prep sanding your bare wood surface. This should be sanded to a grade of no finer than 220 grit. 180 grit is my usual preference. Do this in the direction of the wood grain to avoid creating cross-grain scratches that will show through later on down the line. Once you've sanded the surface, vacuum off any remaining dust and degrease the surface. This can be done with the Epifanes spray thinner, denatured alcohol or methylated spirits. For the first application coat on bare wood, the varnish should be thinned at 40 to 50% by volume. The Epifanes brush thinner for single part paints would be my recommendation for this. Apply the first coat with a brush, working it well into the wood grain. Brush in opposing directions to ensure an even film coverage, and then finish up with a tipping pass in the direction of the wood grain. This heavily thinned first coat will soak into the wood grain quickly, and this is what you want for good adhesion to the wood fibres. Allow the first coat to fully dry. Drying times for this varnish are going to be around 24 hours at 20 degrees C or 68 F, but that will increase to around 40 hours if you are down at 10 degrees C or 50 F. Application below 8 degrees C or 46 F is not recommended. Once dry, lightly sand the first coat. This will help to knock back any raised wood grain and abrade the surface for subsequent coats to adhere to. Do this with 220 grit paper. At this stage you can still induce cross-grain scratches, so try to sand in the direction of the wood grain. I also tend to favour a Scotch-Brite pad at these early stages, as this will sufficiently scuff the surface without removing too much material. Vacuum off any remaining dust, degrease the surface again, and then you are ready to proceed with coat number 2. Apply coat number 2 in the same way. Using a brush, work out the varnish quickly and efficiently to apply an even film thickness. Finish up again with a tipping pass in the direction of the wood grain. The only difference with coat 2 is that it should be thinned at 25% this time. At this stage you should still see a good absorption of the varnish into the wood grain. After coat 2 has dried, follow the same process for coat 3. Begin with a light sanding of the surface at 220 grit. Vacuum, degrease and then apply. Coat 3 should be thinned by 15% now and still applied with a brush. Once dry, prep sand coat 3 to 220 grit. Again, quite lightly at this stage, as most of the varnish still resides within the wood grain. In order to get a full deep gloss finish, you need to build a good film of varnish on top of the wood surface, and coat 4 onwards is where that work really begins. Clean up, degrease again as before, and now begin building coats with anything from 0 to 5% thinner added. The addition of thinner will allow the varnish to flow a little more and buy you a bit more time to be able to work it without affecting the quality of the finish. Sand lightly in between each coat once dry. From here on out, the world is your oyster and you can go as far as you like with building that depth of shine and protection. 8 coats are the recommended minimum for any varnish that is built up onto bare wood. By this stage, the wood grain will be filled and you'll be beginning to build a beautiful glassy finish. Anything up to or exceeding 20 coats is quite feasible to be applying to something such as the deck or sides of a wooden boat to give it a deep gloss, rich colour and great level of UV protection for the wood. When you get up to coat 4 onwards, application can be done by utilising some different methods if you prefer. Rollers are a great way to apply varnish quickly over larger surface areas. Fine foam rollers are my preference. Roll the varnish on evenly, spreading it out in at least 2 different directions for good even coverage. Then tip out the varnish using a brush with the tips of the bristles lightly wetted out. I also get great results from just using a roller for application without tipping with a brush. Perhaps one of the best properties of this varnish is its fabulous flow out, meaning that providing that you leave it alone, the finish will continually improve throughout the hour or so following on from its application. Perhaps one of my biggest varnishing tips is to resist the temptation to continue messing with the surface once applied. Get it on quickly, efficiently and evenly, and then leave it alone and allow the flow out magic to happen. Application of coats 4 onwards can also be done with spray. A gravity feed HVLP gun is recommended for application. Thin the varnish at 15 to 20% using the Epifanes single part spray thinner. Use a 1.2 to 1.5 mm nozzle. Set your pressure at 2 to 3 bar or 29 to 43 psi. If you're using a DIN cup to check the viscosity, this should measure a time of 20 to 24 seconds with a 4 mm cup. Apply coats in the same way that you would with a brush or roller, allowing each coat to fully dry. Sand it lightly to 220 grit, clean, degrease and then proceed with the following coat. Wet on wet application is not advised for this product. When you get to the application of your final coat, sand a little more finely prior to this one. 320 to 400 grit is recommended, and wet sanding at this stage will help you to achieve a very fine, uniform surface on which to build your final coat. The traditional clear gloss varnish is also compatible with a range of other Epifanes products that will help you to tweak or speed up the application process. For example, Epifanes PP Extra Varnish is a fast building flexible 2-part varnish. It allows you to progress through the build-up stages by applying multiple coats in a day without the need for sanding in between each coat. You can build up your initial coats with this quickly and then finish it off with at least 3 clear varnish top coats for a deep gloss UV resistant finish. Epifanes Rapid Clear is a single part alternative product for this process, again designed for the rapid application of multiple build-up coats without the need for sanding in between coats. If you'd like to end up with a non-glossy finish, then there are a number of products that you can use instead for your final coat. The wood finish matte or rubbed effect varnishes, for example, will give a more subtle sheen, which is ideal for yacht interiors where a full gloss finish may not be desired. Take a look at some of my other video guides for tutorials on some of these alternative products. Now, this video is a small insight into some of the variables, application techniques and other considerations that may need to be applied in order to get great finishes in a range of different environments and scenarios. If you'd like to learn the entire process in greater detail, then take a look at my complete online varnishing course by clicking the link in the description below. So there we go, a flexible, high gloss, traditional, single part, user-friendly varnish. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them or put them to the technical team at Epifanes if I'm not able. Cheers guys, catch you in the next one.